You know, D. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Bhatt Paramahansa Bhadrakacharya Ashtotar That Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnu Bhatt Paramahansa Bhadrakacharya Ashtotar That Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Damodara Vrata Ki Jai, holy month of Kartik Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, we're going to need to open that door because this door is not open. Hare Krishna. Thank you. And oh yeah. That's plenty. Is this on? Can you make it is on? Okay. So thank you very much for coming this evening during this month of Damodara or Kartik, very auspicious time of the year. And tonight we're going to be discussing the pastime of Krishna being bound up by Mother Yashoda, what its significance is, and some of the intricacies of this wonderful Lila. What I'm going to do is something a little different. I'm going to read this pastime from the 9th chapter of the 10th canto, Srila Prabhupada's translations from this 9th chapter. And then when we get to text 19, I'm going to read his purport, because he kind of sums up the significance of this Lila for us, and we'll discuss from there. So since this is the Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll begin with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 24th day of October 2021 in San Diego, at the Krishna Fest, Sunday Festival, we're reading from the 10th canto, 9th chapter, texts 1 to 19, translation by Srila Prabhupada, and the purport of 19 is also by Srila Prabhupada. So this is text 1 and 2. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, one day when Mother Yashoda saw that all the maidservants were engaged in other household affairs, She personally began to churn the yogurt. While churning, she remembered the childish activities of Krishna, and in her own way, she composed songs and enjoyed singing to herself about all those activities. Dressed in a saffron yellow sari with a belt tied about her full hips, Mother Yashoda pulled on the churning rope, laboring considerably, her bangles and earrings moving and vibrating, and her whole body shaking. Because of her intense love for her child, her breasts were wet with milk. Her face, with its very beautiful eyebrows, was wet with perspiration, and malati flowers were falling from her hair. While Mother Yashoda was churning butter, Lord Krishna, desiring to drink the milk of her breast, appeared before her. And in order to increase her transcendental pleasure, he caught hold of the churning rod and began to prevent her from churning. Now, how old he was? 3 or 4? He was just young, but he could run. Mother Yashoda then embraced Krishna, allowing him to sit down on her lap, and began to look upon the face of the Lord with great love and affection. Because of her intense affection, milk was flowing from her breasts. But when she saw that the milk pan on the oven was boiling over, she immediately left her son to take care of the overflowing milk, although the child was not yet fully satisfied with drinking the milk of his mother's breast. Being very angry and biting his reddish lips with his teeth, Krishna, with false tears in his eyes, broke the container of yogurt with a piece of stone. Then he entered a room and began to eat the freshly churned butter in a solitary place. Mother Yashoda, after taking down the hot milk from the oven, returned to from the stove, returned to the churning spot, and when she saw that the container of yogurt was broken and that Krishna was not present, she concluded that the breaking of the pot was his work. Krishna at that time was sitting on an upside-down wooden mortar for grinding spices and was distributing milk preparations such as yogurt and butter to the monkeys as he liked. Because of having stolen, he was looking all around with great anxiety, suspecting that he might be chastised by his mother. Mother Yashoda, upon seeing him, very cautiously approached him from behind. When Lord Krishna saw his mother, stick in hand, he very quickly got down from the top of the mortar and began to flee as if very much afraid. Although yogis try to capture him as the Paramatma by meditation, desiring to enter into the effulgence of the Lord with great austerities and penances, they failed to reach him. But Mother Yashoda, thinking that same personality of Godhead, Krishna, to be her little son, began following Krishna to catch him. While following Krishna, Mother Yashoda, her thin waist overburdened by her heavy breasts, naturally had to reduce her speed. Because of following Krishna very swiftly, her hair became loose and the flowers in her hair were falling after her. Yet she did not fail to capture her son Krishna. When caught by Mother Yashoda, Krishna became more and more afraid and admitted to being an offender. As she looked upon him, she saw that he was crying, his tears mixing with the black ointment around his eyes. And as he rubbed his eyes with his hands, he smeared the ointment all over his face. Mother Yashoda, catching her beautiful son by the hand, mildly began to chastise him. Mother Yashoda was always overwhelmed by intense love for Krishna, not knowing who Krishna was or how powerful he was. Because of maternal affection for Krishna, she never even cared to know who he was. Therefore, when she saw that her son had become excessively afraid, she threw the stick away and desired to bind him so that he would not commit any further naughty activities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. Because he is not under the influence of the element of time, for him there's no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times. Being absolute, beyond relativity, he is free from distinctions between cause and effect, although he is the cause and effect of everything. That unmanifested person, who is beyond the perception of the senses, had now appeared as a human child, and Mother Yashoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. Now, she's trying to bind him with a rope. You see what happens. The new rope, when Mother Yashoda was trying to bind the offending child, she saw that the binding rope was short by a distance of the width of 2 fingers. Thus she brought some other rope to join to it. The new rope was also short by the measurement of 2 fingers. And when another rope was joined to it, it was still 2 fingers too short. As many ropes as she joined, all of them failed. Their shortness could not be overcome. Thus Mother Yashoda joined whatever ropes were available in the house, but still she failed in her attempt to bind Krishna. Mother Yashoda's friends, the elder gopis in the neighborhood, were smiling and enjoying the fun. Similarly, Mother Yashoda, although laboring in that way, was also smiling. All of them were struck with wonder. Because of Mother Yashoda's hard labor, her whole body became covered with perspiration, and the flowers and comb were falling from her hair. Is there a child? Oh, there he is. No. Is he the one? Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Because, covered with perspiration, and the flowers and comb were falling from her hair, when child Krishna saw his mother thus fatigued, he became merciful to her and agreed to be bound. So then Shukadeva Goswami, who's narrating this, he says to Maharaj Parikshit, who's hearing, O King Parikshit, this entire universe with its great exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Indra is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet the Supreme Lord has one special transcendental attribute. He comes under the control of his devotees. This was now exhibited by Krishna in this pastime. And now I'm going to read this purport, and Srila Prabhupada gives us some insight into the significance of this whole pastime. This pastime of Krishna's is very difficult to understand, but devotees can understand it. It is therefore said, Darshayangs tad vidam loka atmano bhaktavashyatam. This word bhaktavashyatam is very important. The Lord displays the transcendental attribute of coming under the control of his devotees. That's bhaktavashyatam. As stated in the Brahma Samhita 535, Eko pisaurucha hitum jagadanda kotin yakchaktirastya jagadanda chaya yadantak andantarasta padamana chayantarastam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. So I'm going to just give a loose translation because Prabhupada doesn't translate. So the Lord, he affects the manifestation of all millions of universes through his energies, Yakchaktir. And all of them are within him, within his energy. At the same time, all of the countless atoms spread throughout the universe, he's within those atoms. So everything's within him, he's within everything. And Prabhupada continues, Govinda Madi Purusham, I worship that Govinda, the original personality of Godhead. By his one plenary portion as Paramatma, the Lord controls innumerable universes with all their demigods. Yet he agrees to be controlled by a devotee. Again, Bhaktavashyatam. In the Upanishad it is said that the Supreme Lord can run with more speed than the mind. But here we see that although Krishna wanted to avoid being arrested by his mother, he was finally defeated and Mother Yashoda captured him. Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrahma Sevyamanam. Krishna is served by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune. Nonetheless, he steals butter like one who is poverty-stricken. Yamaraj, the controller of all living entities, fears the order of Krishna. Yet Krishna is afraid of his mother's stick. These contradictions cannot be understood by one who is not a devotee, but a devotee can understand how powerful is unalloyed devotional service to Krishna. It is so powerful that Krishna can be controlled by an unalloyed devotee. This Bhritya Vashyata does not mean that he is under the control of the servant. Rather, he is under the control of the servant's pure love. In the Bhagavad Gita 121, it said that Krishna became the chariot driver of Arjuna. Arjuna ordered him, Senayodabayo madhye vratam stapya mechuta. My dear Krishna, you have agreed to be my charioteer and to execute my orders. Place my chariot between the two armies of soldiers. Krishna immediately executed this order. And therefore one may argue that Krishna also is not independent. But this one's ajnana, ignorance. This is one's ajnana or ignorance. Krishna is always fully independent. When he becomes subordinate to his devotees, this is a display of ananda chinmaya rasa, the humor of transcendental qualities that increases his transcendental pleasure. Everyone worships Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he sometimes desires to be controlled by someone else. Such a controller can be none other than his pure devotee. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this Damodar pastime is perhaps the most beloved of all in Vrindavan pastimes. From this wonderful book, The Nectar of Devotion, we can find out many more details of the intricacies of the different relationships one can discover and develop by the process of bhakti yoga. This Bhakti Yoga process, which Srila Prabhupada brought to these shores in 1965, is very ancient. In fact, it's eternal. And when Krishna came to this planet 5,000 years ago, some of you are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita. He spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. But he also enacted these wonderful pastimes in Vrindavan and then in Mathura and also Dwarka, in which he had all of his different relationships that we have here, but in their perfection. What is it that makes life worth living? As we know, it's love. If there were no relationships, if we didn't have any relationship with anybody, we would be like stones. And you may know this, and the sad fact, I remember when Romania was finally broke out, or they had a revolution, and they broke away from the Eastern Bloc. And then so many people went and visited, and they found there were many orphanages, because there was this idea that we have to increase the population, so there was all this encouragement to have children, but there really wasn't facility to take care of them. They were abandoned. And these poor kids, they had grown up in this orphanage without the care, personal care of a mother and so forth. And they were all, emotionally scarred, very much so. So really we need that interrelationship. That's what makes life worth living. But in this material world, these are simply reflections of the original relationships we have with God, with Krishna. And that's why it's so frustrating, because they always come to an end, sooner or later. They change. I remember when I joined the movement, I was 25. Both of my parents were living at that time. And I would periodically visit them. And my father, he never really reconciled me being a Hare Krishna. He was always asking, when are you coming out of that thing? Even practically he's on his deathbed. When are you coming out of that thing? I'd been already 15 years in the movement. But my mother, she had this, maternal rust. If I was healthy and I was happy, that's all she wanted to know. She would always try to feed me. I said, okay, make me some potatoes and some peas and spinach. So practically, she lived to be 96. And I visited her. At the end there, she was with my brother in Ithaca, and I went to see her. It was a few weeks. She was in the hospice situation. And I told Mom, it's time for japa. Okay, let's do japa. And she was chanting very nicely, Hare Krishna. She didn't know the whole mantra, but I chanted one Hare Krishna. She chanted Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. We went on for a good 15 minutes. So even in old age, the rasa is still there. There's still a thing. But eventually, it breaks somehow or other. But so we are trying, as spirit souls, we're different from the body. This is the first lesson of Krishna consciousness in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna describes how we're pure spirit, but the body is made of these material elements. And it's a very fragile machine. It can be, we've all had experience in the last year and a half or more, how suddenly this disease that never existed before, that was what the whole idea is, a new COVID disease, was just creating havoc. And even if you didn't get it, there was this whole fear of getting it. The lockdowns and the masks and the whole thing, and it just changed everything. Because we couldn't forget our mortality. We had to remember. Now devotees, that's the first thing we learn, is that, okay, the body's temporary, birth, old age, disease, and death, but you don't die. So the question is, what determines your next birth? Once you come to the point of accepting that we were never born and never die, Najayate mriyate vakadach, and Prabhupada would quote this verse all the time. Nayam bhutvava vedana ajo nitya shastrata. We are unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. We don't die when the body dies. So now the question is, between now and when this body finally gives out, it's just a machine, it's like an old car eventually. How can we assure, what can we do, if anything, to get the best next body, our next situation? And that's what Krishna consciousness is all about. We don't want another material body. When you have a material body, you're subject to old age, like me, disease, death, and rebirth, to start all over again. And in the Vedic culture, That's the prime understanding and motivational goal that people have. How can we stop birth and death? There's this Kumbh Mela. They have this big mela. Mela means a big gathering they have, centered in Prayag or Allahabad, present-day Allahabad. I think it's at different cities too, but that's where they have the big one, right? Maha Kumbh Mela. And we learned about that in Krishna consciousness. What's the significance? Well, there's a Triveni. Now you see two main rivers: the Ganges. Everyone knows the Ganges, and the Yamuna. They meet at Allahabad, and there's this third river that's not manifest called the Saraswati. So that's called Triveni, three rivers. If you take your bath, this is the understanding from the Vedas. You take a bath in that spot, the Triveni, where the rivers meet. At a certain point, and it's always in January, and it's always freezing. It's in northern India. Yeah. Then you'll get liberation, and literally millions and millions of people come from now. They come from around the world, but most they come from all over India to try to get that liberation. And the devotees would go too. I never went to one, but we didn't go for the liberation. We went there to preach. Prabhupada went personally, took the devotees twice, and they would set up huge prasadam distribution, have kirtans going through. There were books available, because these are people who are seekers, and they're interested. Because devotees know, they're assured that Krishna consciousness itself gives you liberation. It's a byproduct. What is liberation? What is it that brings us back life after life? There's two things, basically. One is all of the unfulfilled desires that you've developed over this life. And the other is your karma. Your karma. If you act in such a way against the Vedic rules, you're very cruel, you hurt other people, this is bad karma. And your next life could very well be a subhuman. That happens. It's not assured. Human life is very, very rare. Prabhupada would quote this one verse from the 11th canto all the time. Labdva sudurlamamidam bahusambhavante manushyam artadam anityam apiha dhira turnam yatetanam patetanam mityavad nikshayasaya vishaya kalusarvatakshyat. Very instructive for all human beings who are ready to listen. He says, you have attained this human form of life after many, many other births, coming through different species. The human form, manusham. And what's the special quality? Artadam. That this can give the goal of life. This can you can fulfill the mission of life in the human form alone. The cats and the dogs, even if one wanders in here, you won't get much out of it. It's suspicious, but you can't understand. But we have the intelligence. That's what the whole thing. So therefore, don't waste time. He says, Turnam yateta. Very cogent words. He says, immediately strive. For what, though? That's to say. As long as your body is still functioning, he says, strive for the nikshayasa, the ultimate good, which is defined in many, many places, which is breaking free of the bonds of birth and death and returning, going back home, back to Godhead. Prabhupada's immortal phrase, which implies and states that we were once there. That's our home. We're all exiles here. We're not in our natural situation. And so therefore, even if we strive as hard as we can to get a place of peace and security and happiness here, the time factor just pushes us toward change and danger. So he said, Nikshayasaya Vishayakalasava, because you've already experienced and tasted so many different varieties of sense gratification in all these other species and in all your other human forms of life. So don't waste your human life on that. Rather strive for the ultimate good. And the ultimate good, as explained in great detail by this wonderful book, The Nectar of Devotion, and in Srila Prabhupada's other books, is increasing your happiness unlimitedly and decreasing your unhappiness down to nil. We're striving to do that anyway. Have you noticed? Nobody wants to be unhappy. We want to try to secure ourselves as much as possible. This is what insurance is all about, right? To get away from the fear. Because even if nothing bad happens to you, it may happen, and then what will happen? Okay, I'll be ready for it. I'll pay the car insurance and the health insurance and the fire insurance and this insurance and life insurance. Even if I die, my children will be taken care of. Okay, now I'm at peace. Really? Not really. Because first of all, you don't know if they're really going to pay up. And second of all, it's foolishness. It's a dream. This whole construct of trying to be happy and secure on the material plane is a phantasmagoria. It cannot be achieved. Because we're spirit and we're trying to become successful within the material realm. So, this pastime, back to this Damodara Lila, this is in the teachings of the Nectar Devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, by Srila Rupa Goswami, who's our main acharya, really, and who's main disciple of Lord Chaitanya, and through whose book Srila Prabhupada wrote this, or this running translation, he called it a summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, systematically shows what the advantages are of Bhakti Yoga, what the goal is, what the method is, and what the result is. He describes, I'm going to read a little bit from the section about parental ras. It's so sweet. He's describing all different varieties of how Mother Yashoda is relating to Krishna, and Nanda Maharaj and the elder gopis. They all have this motherly affection for Krishna. And Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Ye yatam apapadyate tam tataiva bhajamyaham. As they worship me, I reciprocate accordingly. So, if someone wants to awaken, or if their natural rasa with Krishna, their relationship with Krishna is one of a parent, then Krishna will respond to that. If you practice Bhakti Yoga properly, centered on especially the chanting of the holy name and doing all the other things that are outlined and we practice, and those of us who are initiated, then gradually you become more and more attracted to your natural rasa with Krishna. And one of those is this parental ras. There's 5 main rasas or relationships. One is called the Shanta ras. And this is one that doesn't have any active service to it, but the quality is that you're always thinking of Krishna and you're completely aloof from any material attraction. Even in Goloka Vrindavan, there are certain entities that have a Shanta ras, such as the flute. The flute waits to be picked up. Otherwise, he doesn't do anything. He just thinks of Krishna. But then he has a wonderful function, you know. Well, other like the grass, Krishna walks on them, you know. But then you have dasya ras, which is the servant ras, and this is the basic ras. The qualities of Shanta ras are there in dasya ras. Always thinking of Krishna, being satisfied, having no attraction for Maya, but wanting to do active service. And this is present in everyone. Krishna's parents and other elders, the gopis, his friends, they're also servants. Servants means that they want to satisfy the desires of the served. And Krishna responds to that. He also reciprocates, and he's the most loving and protective master. He's not that bhakti means the exchange. It's not just that you're serving some stone, or you're serving somebody who's so remote that you can't even understand any relationship. Bhakti means personal relationship. So then there's the Sakya Ras, which is the friends. We're very familiar, if you read Krishna's Lila, with his exuberant pastimes with his coward boyfriends. Wouldn't it be great to have a job where the whole job is you just play all day, and that's the job? Because they would take the cows out. Cows would be very busy. They would be feeding, doing their thing. And the boys would play games. They would wrestle. Eventually some demon would come. You have to have a villain in it for every exciting pastime. So all these villains would come, sent by Kamsa, and Krishna would kill them in amazing ways. And then the boys would go home, wow, They didn't know he was God. They thought, oh, this must be some demigod, or Krishna is so wonderful, and they would sing on the way back. And the gopis, both the younger gopis and the older gopis, they were back in the village, and they would just relish hearing about Krishna's latest adventure, And then they'd think of him all day and coming back. And so that's Krishna's unlimited pastime, Sakya Ras, also described in this wonderful book. Then, even more intimate. The Sakya Ras means that there's the Dasya Ras is some formality. Krishna is the superior and I'm the servant. But with the friends, there's a slackening of that. And sometimes Krishna will lose wrestling matches to his friends. He'll have to carry them on the back. They'll insult him a little bit, I call them, what friends do, They'll steal the other lunch package, like that. So Krishna, he loves that. That's more favorite to him than even Dasya Ras. Dasya Ras there's plenty of in Vaikuntha. Lord Vishnu and his thousands and unlimited servants. It's wonderful, but it's quite formal. But in Krishna's Lila, he prefers this informality and this more intimate relationship. So then you have the parental rasa, is what you're looking at, and then you add this idea of maintenance, this idea of Krishna. He's, especially he's a little boy crawling in the yard. Mother Yashoda is always in anxiety. Something, he's going to scratch himself on some stone, or some animal will come. So she's always in that maternal anxiety of love for Krishna. But that's in material world, it's not really nectarian, because he might really get hurt. But Krishna somehow or other, even he gets spirited away, he's taken into the sky by some huge demon, some tornado demon. Mother Yashoda is fainting. She can't stand it. She can't see her son. The tears are flowing, And her friends are trying to comfort her. And then somehow or other, the big demon falls down to a stone, is killed, and Krishna is just playing on his body. Oh, what a relief. You can imagine. She doesn't know he's God. She's saying, he's back again. This is what he's doing. He's churning up these intense emotions. Kaliya. Can you imagine seeing your beloved child or your beloved friend, in the coils of a huge dragon, breathing fire. He's got so many coils, and Krishna's just wrapped up. He's a goner in the middle of the Yamuna. They can't go in. Balaram won't let him go in because he knows that it's poison-like. So, and finally, there's practically expiring, and Krishna gets up and he starts dancing on the hoods, and the Gandharvas are playing music, and the flowers are falling, and he's what a relief. So the emotions, that's the whole thing, is in the emotions, the rasa. So this parental rasa, now focusing on Yashoda, who's the foremost of the possessors of this parental rasa. So this is meant to be an object of meditation this whole month. And we sing this song, Damodara, every morning. And you're welcome to join in. Just tune into the YouTube at 7:45 in the morning. And we'll be singing it. At home you can offer your lamp. I'm sorry we don't have any lamps prepared for you, but maybe next Sunday we'll have it together. But we're meant to offer the ghee wicks to Krishna, and to sing this Damodara, which celebrates this pastime, written by Satyavrata Muni. And there's also the element of Radha Damodar. Because I actually, for a long time, I was wondering, how does Radha Damodar fit in? Damodar is this little child bound about the rope. Damodar means literally rope around the belly. Udara is belly and Dam is rope. That's it. So it is the Radha Damodar. So we learn, there's this wonderful magazine that comes out by the Hare Krishnas. It's called Back to Godhead. You may have heard of it before. Every 2 months. I used to work on this magazine in the 70s and 80s. And here it is, Transcendental Pastimes of Radha Damodar, by one of our most seasoned writers, is Satyaraj Prabhu. And he describes how there's one pastime where Krishna came late to a rendezvous with Radharani, and when he did show up, she was apparently angry at him, and so she had a little golden sash, and she tied him around the waist with that, and she's holding him by that, This was her response. This is Radha Damodar. But there's so many other ropes, the ropes of her love, of her affection. She's known as Hara. This Hare in the Hare Krishna mantra is evocative for the word Hara, which means she who steals away. Yeah. And what does she steal away? She steals away Krishna's heart. And so she's binding him with the ropes of her love. And so that's another meaning of the word Damodar. But in this particular pastime, Mother Yashoda's, it's all engineered. Krishna engineered the whole thing. Why is Mother Yashoda cooking special milk? What's the story? I mean, she's the queen. She's the queen of Vrindavan. But she's got milk on the stove, and she's churning. Well, it's described that all her other assistants were busy doing something else. And she was cooking this special milk. This is gourmet, from gourmet grass the cows were eating. And they were creating very flavorful and fragrant milk that was especially for Krishna. So this was Krishna's milk. And she was heating it up for him. But he came, and as she was churning, she was also churning yogurt. And he grabbed hold of the churning rod, initiating the whole pastime of love. This was his technique. So she saw him and said, "Oh, okay, sure, you wanted to, suck my breast milk." So she got him up there. But then the milk pan started boiling over. And if you're going to do anything, you have to do it right away if you're going to do something. So this was his milk. It wasn't she was ignoring him. She put him down to get Krishna's milk so that it wouldn't be ruined. So then he became angry. And he breaks the pot. And he runs off with some of the butter. And he starts eating it in a secluded place. Meanwhile, he found another pot hanging in the storeroom. He gets up with that and he gets some of that and feeds it to the monkeys. There's one pastime where he feeds so much to the monkeys they won't eat it. He said, "What's the use of this butter? Even the monkeys won't eat it." And he starts throwing it on the ground. And so Mother Yashoda, she has a stick. Prabhupada describes, from the commentaries, how did she find him? She saw his butter-smeared footprints. She's following like a detective. That's in the purport. I didn't read. So she's got the stick. She's coming up behind him. Krishna. Then he's running. Now, there's one verse. Let me see if I can find this for you. That's describing these pastimes have been. Well, anyway, I'll say this. This is written by Bhuvamangal Thakur. It's not part of the Krishna Karnamrita. Sambade sudabina mambamaya santam aya sayantamonayantim lumbalakamabalambe tambalam tunapilagdajumbalam. Amazing verses. So it's described, Sambade sudabinam. Krishna is running. Now here, it didn't say this in the Bhagavatam. He's running among the cows, trying to get away. Now he's really short and small. He can duck under the cows. She can't, So he's tripping. He's falling, and he falls into the mud. But it's milky mud. It's mud because the cows are so joyous that they're always spreading milk on the ground. They're spraying, So he's falling and getting mud all over himself, and finally she catches him, and his hair is hanging down, and she takes him and she binds him. Then this is the pastime. So I also summarized this pastime in a poem. This many years ago, 2004 or 5. I work on a calendar every year. We have put out a BBT calendar. So this year they wanted me to do some poetry captions, so I did. So you've all seen this pastime. It's right on the altar there. We used to have a big picture on my wall, but a small one there where Krishna's being bound up. And it's perfect. He's looking at his mother. He's about to cry, At last Yashoda caught a naughty child who smashed a pot of yogurt in a pique. I don't know if you know that idiom. In a pique means he was angry. At last Yashoda caught a naughty child who smashed a pot of yogurt in a pique. Though seemingly annoyed, she felt beguiled by little Krishna's loving charm unique. "O imp, I've caught you now, but do not fear. You see, I've thrown the stick upon the floor. But I must bind you with this rope, my dear, lest you increase your mischief more and more." And so Yashoda bound her little son, who hid his glory to evoke her love. The blessings she enjoyed are never won by gods and goddesses who dwell above. That's right from the Bhagavatam. Now, let's focus a little bit on this binding, the final binding, where the 2 inches too short pastime. This was, of course, a miracle. In other words, this is one of the supernatural things that happened. He's got a small little belly there, a few feet of rope should have been plenty, right? But somehow it was 2 inches too short. "Oh, I'll get some more, get some more, get some more." So she's laughing, perspiring. Her friends, probably described in the Krishna book, they're also laughing. And how's this happening, So there's great significance to those 2 fingers, you see. And it's described by the acharyas. They really got into this, all of the ins and outs of this. We can't get into it. But it's, so this 2 fingers is very important to understand. And one is the old Western theology, the grace and the works. How do you get the mercy of God? Well, by the grace of God. But you have to also work. You have to do good works, right? So here it means by your own effort, then Krishna bestows his mercy. So there's 2 things that's needed. Your own effort is not enough. And Krishna's mercy, of course, is, how does that mercy come? When he sees our sincerity of service. Then we feel the reciprocation of Krishna. That's how bhakti works. And here, Mother Yashoda, you notice that when I first read this pastime in the Krishna book, I said, this is amazing. If you notice, each stage in the pastime is signaled by flowers falling out of her hair. If you read it again closely, you'll see. It starts out that she's churning, 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 and when flowers start falling out of her hair, Krishna grabs the churning rod. And then the whole thing goes on. And she's running, running, running. The flowers are falling away. She catches him. And now she's trying to tie him up. She's perspiring. When the flowers fall from the hair, Krishna allows himself to be tied. So it's like an offering, a special offering. There's probably a whole bunch of commentary on that part of it. But this is very important for us as well, because everything works in Bhakti by these two things. We follow the process. We chant Hare Krishna. We don't know how it's working. There's some faith. Why? Because of the intervention in our life of a pure devotee, either personally through the books or somehow through a dream comes sometimes, and gives us the preliminary faith or preliminary interest. Prabhupada said, is interest and respect to come into the association of devotees. That also may be by reading a book. The media. Prabhupada's here. When you open a book by Srila Prabhupada, you're associating with Prabhupada directly. You open the Bhagavad Gita, you're associating with Krishna. Don't think you're not. If you're reading with interest and some ardent, submissive reception, then Krishna will be speaking directly, and you'll feel the potency. And so then our effort has to be there. Sometimes just preliminary effort. Chanting. Even chanting one name, Krishna responds to. We don't realize the power of this holy name. By chanting Hare Krishna mantra or just chanting the word Krishna, you're getting free from eons of karma, bad karma. You don't feel different, maybe, right away, but it's happening. You need to have that faith. And so many verses describe that. The Brahma Samhita, Karmani Nirdhati Kintaja Bhakti Bhajan. From Indra, the Lord of the heavens, down to the little Indragopa germ, everyone is bound by his karma. You don't know it, but all of a sudden something happens. You're pushed this way and that way in your life. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But when one seriously worships Govinda, he burns it all up. It's like seeds that eventually fructify. But as the seeds are burned, they don't fructify. So that's just a preliminary benefit of bhakti. That's not the result. The result of bhakti is pure love for Krishna. Even returning back to Godhead is also a byproduct of that. If Krishna wants us to stay here, I'll stay here. Just let me, as long as I can stay conscious of you and serve you, and like that. So Krishna reciprocates. He reciprocates our effort. And just coming here, all the different places you could be, coming here, the rare, there's 60 souls here, is a very rare thing and wonderful thing. And you should pursue it. In other words, however much you got, some of you may be chanting 16 rounds or more, I don't know, but stay with it and pursue it and learn more and try to become purer and purer. That's and then each one of these pastimes, it doesn't matter what rasa it may be, from Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra to Dwarka Lila, just reading the marriage to Rukmini in Krishna book, it's all very sweet because it's all about Krishna. And Krishna has this personal relationship with every single one of us as spirit souls. And that is the only security in this world. Let's face it. I've been following current events too long in this world, and it's a total miracle. The hand of God, that the whole thing hasn't blown up. There's a website. 60 or 70 near misses for a nuclear war. Really, there's some Russian guy in a silo somewhere. This is back in the 80s, suddenly it looks like on his computer screen, early computers, it looks like the United States has launched an attack on Russia. And all he was supposed to do was to call it in to the central office, and they would have released the missiles. He said, this doesn't make any sense. Why? So he didn't do that. Instead, he doubted it. He made some other phone calls, and thought it was a computer glitch. It wasn't a real thing. My God, that was almost it. You remember I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. Some of you were around at that time, 1962, I think it was. I was 14. I said, "This is it. This is what I've been dreaming about, not favorably, had nightmares, since I was 6 years old. It's happening. You know, and they were going on, and they're coming. And eventually the Russian boats came near, and the Americans had blockaded the whole place. Well, now what's going to happen, you know? So it turns out, of course it didn't happen, that's why we're sitting here. Again, Russian admiral, they had submarines. No one knew that. I mean, we knew it, but no one knew. And the Americans, okay, we can see they got submarines coming with them, you know. And they had some nuclear torpedoes on there, nuclear-tipped torpedoes. Great. So we warned them. We said, okay, we know you have these submarines. Now we're going to drop some depth charges. You've seen them out in the movies, you know, but not fatal ones, just to warn them and get them to surface. So the central office in Moscow, they had no way of communicating. You know, they didn't know. So the depth charges started coming. They said, oh, World War III has started. Let's shoot the torpedoes. Luckily, where they were going to shoot from, the admiral was on there, and he said, no, this doesn't make any sense. Wait. Sure enough, they just surfaced, and that's why we're sitting here. And there's another 30 of those. So how many times is that going to happen? So the point is, we have to be ready. We have to be serious about our spiritual life. It can happen at any time. We had this COVID scare now, you know, and some of our friends and some devotees died, you know, unexpectedly. So, chant Hare Krishna. That's the idea. Try to remember Krishna at every moment. It's practical. It's chanting and the other rules and regulations. And all of these pastimes that we're reading, this is reality. This is reality going on in the spiritual world. What we're leading here is a kind of a dream world. We take it for real, we take it for important, we take it for the meaning and the substantial. But ultimately it's not. It's all just going, changing and moving on, like bubbles coming. Prabhupada gave the analogy in purport in the second canto. Just like we're in the ocean. You know, you see the ocean and waves come in and there's so much foam there, bubbles together and they dissipate. That's our life in this world. But it's a special life because it's human life, so take advantage of it. Okay, we have some time left. Are there any questions on Damodara Lila or anything else I'd covered tonight?
I have one question.
Yes, please.
What should we talk about?
All right. Do we have the mic? Go ahead, I'll repeat your question.
Yeah. When the soul is liberated from the body,
Yeah.
where does it go? Does it know where it has to go?
All right, repeat the question. Okay, when the soul is liberated from the body, where does it go? That's the question. First of all, every soul is liberated from the body. The body dies, if you want to call it liberation. But the problem is you have two bodies. We have the gross body that we call the body, but then there's the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. You read the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's very nicely explained. That subtle body doesn't die. Your mind lives on, your intelligence, and that is encasing the soul. And as we have developed our consciousness, that is the template for our next body. It's already determined. By the time you leave the body breaks down. So where you go, you're going to go somewhere. And most of us, you know, until this time, we've gone to another material body. Now, if we followed some Krishna conscious principles, we led a good life, we'll get a human body. We'll get another chance.
Does it know where it has to go?
No, you don't know. The higher authorities know. The super soul is there. Krishna's in your heart. And there's all of the gods, you know. What is that? Balaram, help me out. What is that verse? Daiva netrena. Karmana daiva netrena, jantu deho papattaye. Daiva netrena means by the observation, nature's eyes. By the observation of Daiva, the divine, the super soul, and all the other sub-gods who are helped to, you know, it's already planned out. We've determined it. When you die, it's too late. You know, just like for Ajamil, he couldn't really do anything except he did by, you know, luckily he chanted the holy name and everything changed. Huh?
Is there any way to know it?
Yes, there's a way to know it. That's the whole idea of this Krishna consciousness. If you follow the principles, then you can decide. You don't have to follow the impulses of the senses and the mind, but you purify your intelligence by hearing and by studying and by chanting, and then you can think of this, hear this, chant this, eat this way. All the senses can be engaged, just like the beautiful deity worship. There's Radha Giridhari. Our eyes are engaged. The incense is engaged. The sense of smell. Certainly, the hearing is engaged with all the glorification. Even when the flame comes around, the touch. So Krishna consciousness means engaging all the senses in the service of the Lord of the senses. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam, Bhakti Ruchite. Bhakti is said to be engaging of the senses and the mind in the service of the Lord. Means linking up, yoga. Then you can be assured of either going back to Godhead or getting another birth where you can make further progress and go back to Godhead. Otherwise, you have no idea. You don't know what one of your sins or one of your activities from long ago can determine where you go. You may even lose the human form of life entirely. So why take that chance? We have some control because we have the higher intelligence. So use that God-given intelligence to learn the science of bhakti. It's a science. And then chant the Hare Krishna mantra and do all the other things that follow that we can be assured of a much better birth, or even going back home, back to Godhead, which Prabhupada said we should try to do. Okay, is that okay? We can find out. We have a question over here, and the mic is coming. Yes,
I hear people say, in my next life I'd like to be an eagle, or I'd like to be a tiger, or a pit bull. So if I want to be one of those things, if I act just like that in this life as a human being, can I become pit bull or a tiger just by acting like a tiger now?
You can increase your chances of doing that. There may be other factors that'll,
right.
make
it's complicated. Right? But if
you may be
a
cat who's afraid of a pit bull and is always, gets killed by a pit bull.
Sure.
It's a real crapshoot.
But if I'm a hunter and I go out and kill animals and then I eat them, just like a tiger, I just keep acting like that, I can become a tiger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or if I'm a surfer and I just fish and surf all day long.
Oh, Prabhupada said.
All I'm thinking, then I can become a dolphin or a seal.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
You see how that works?
Sufferers.
You just meditate and constantly
about
something, and
there's a lot of inputs. Yeah, but the thing is, you'll have another material body, and if you do any of those things, it won't be a human body. So you're just prolonging the agony. Why do that? Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'll give you one more poem.
Hare Krishna.
Vijay Krishna, where have you been? Yes. He's in Portugal. He attends all the classes, and he always comes like that. Yes, it's wonderful. Okay, go ahead, Vijay.
But Dravida Prabhu, so many guests in the temple room, may I?
Please.
Thank you very much. Prabhu, my question is related to this month of Kartik, Damodara month, and it is as follows. Why is it that during this month of Kartik, Damodara month, the potency of the spiritual practices becomes multiplied by the hundreds, or the thousands, or the millions? I'm not sure. What is the spiritual reason for this to happen?
I really don't know anything more than just that it's Krishna's blessing. That it also goes the other way. If you do anything cruel or offensive, that's also multiplied. So be careful. But it's an opportunity. Just like, the idea of the Dham, right? You go to Vrindavan, the same thing is there. If you're able to make your way to Vrindavan, then whatever you do in the way of devotional service is multiplied 1,000 times or something. But if you're offensive there, if you do sinful activities, then you'll also suffer for that more. So it's just one of these special. I mean, even just the whole Hare Krishna mantra chanting is a special dispensation for this age, right? Because Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatadanyata. The word kalo is there. It means in the Kali Yuga, then, I made a poem. If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found. But to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, that my head ever unto your lotus feet bow. So that's a special thing for this age, that if you just chant His holy name, we can't go off to the Himalayas, or even some retreat for more than a week. It's just not possible. Even Arjun, great Arjun, who is personal associate of Krishna, he rejected the 6th chapter where it was just dhyana yoga, sit like this and breathe like this and be alone and like that. He said, no, I can't. I'm a Kshatriya. What to speak of us? So there's so many concessions, but we still have to do the process as it's given to us. And one of the great opportunities is month of Damodar. Try to do some more devotional service. This Damodar Ashtaka is so nice to sing. We can provide you with the words, or you can, as I say, tune in and sing with us. Namam Vishwaram Satchidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam Yashoda Biyolukalandavamanam Param Rishtamatyanta Todrucha Gopya. See, many of you know it already. That's good. So that's it. It's a special concession, Prabhu.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, again, monumental answer to my question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
He always says that. All right, now it's 7 o'clock, so it's time for another little kirtan. At 7:15, we'll have our feast. Take out. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bha.